If we want to have peace, we're going to have to get involved in the political process. That means every one of you. And when the time comes to vote, vote these RINOs out! Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast. David Penn, your host, glad to be with you on this Tuesday night, March 18th, for number 189. Mr. Smith goes to Washington. And for those of you that are film buffs, that is a great Frank Capra film starring Jimmy Stewart, and it typifies some of the things we're going to talk about this evening. At the start of this podcast, I'm welcoming Tanner back into the studio, who had a bout of COVID, and he's coughing in the corner over there. Tanner, good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, David. Thank you.
Tanner's here. Hey, you know what? We're going to do everything we can, and here's why. Because this is the greatest change to American governance since 1861. I've been saying that, and I think it's lost on people. What happened in 1861 is Abraham Lincoln became president of the United States, and in response to his electoral victory, the nation split into two. We're right on the verge of that happening again. There's really only one way to avoid civil war, in my opinion, which I'm entitled to. If we want to have peace, we're going to have to get involved in the political process. That means every one of you. You're watching things pretty rapidly spiral out of control all over the world and right here in the United States of America. So the bastion against that is self-governance. Self-governance, getting involved in the political process and helping affect these tremendous changes that many of us believe in, and having the energy of American citizens deployed into this in a way that's unprecedented in peacetime. You know, if there's a civil war, hey, we're all going to be involved, right? That kind of wakes everybody up. Why don't we wake up before we reach that point? Go to precinctstrategy.com, figure out how to get involved in your local political party. Go in. Don't let these people know, these apparatus people know what you believe, because that was a mistake that I made, and then they will expel you. No, just go in, smile, say I'm a Republican. I want to elect Republicans, and when the time comes to vote, vote these RINOs out, or we will suffer the consequences. Tanner, we're going to go through a series of videos which are related to the ongoing negotiations to bring about a ceasefire in the Ukraine. The Ukrainians have agreed. What a surprise. We're waiting to find out if Vladimir Putin will agree. Let's just go through 5 clips of different perspectives on this issue, starting with one of our favorites, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina.
I want to tell you and your people, you're the ally I've been hoping for all my life. Not one American has died defending Ukraine. You've taken our weapons and you've kicked their ass. And I'm very proud to have you as our ally.
Well, there's a perspective. Let's have a proxy war with the Russians. Let's arm the Ukrainians, and let's kick Russian ass. Now, this is not unusual. This is why I'm urging you to get into the party, because the party is filled with Lindsey Grahams. There are more Lindsey Grahams in the Republican Party than there are pro-Trump people, particularly here in Minnesota. Let's listen to number 2. Here's a bunch of Republican Congress people letting the world know how aligned they are with peace. Number 2, please.
Thank you, Marcy. And like you, I'm very proud to stand with all these members as well. It's really amazing to listen to all of you. And thank you so much for standing up like this, including Joe Wilson, who had to leave. And we have to encourage more Republicans to stand up like this and do exactly what John Larson said and show a profile and courage. I've got a very simple message. It shouldn't be necessary, but we have to be very clear. Putin is a dictator. Zelensky is not. Zelensky was elected by 73% of the voters in Ukraine, an election that was certified by the European Commission that certifies it was in fact a free and fair election. Very simple point that we need to be reported regularly. Putin is a dictator, Zelensky is not. Putin and the Russians invaded Ukraine, not the other way around. When we talk about appeasement, as Steny pointed out, and as Lloyd pointed out, we're talking about what Neville Chamberlain did with Hitler before World War II. Let's just give him something. Let's try and make peace with this guy, and he'll stop. He didn't stop. The other day, Hexed said, Ukraine can't win this war. They're just not big enough. They can't possibly beat these guys. If we cave now and reward Russia for invading a democratically elected leader's country, who is our ally, if we reward Putin now, what do you think the people in Latvia are going to say? What are the people in Lithuania going to say? What are the people in Estonia going to say? What are the people in Moldova going to say? What are the people in Poland going to say? When I went to Ukraine last April and visited with the commander of the Polish military and saw the map of that area, topographical map that showed the mountains that ringed the area. If he goes through Ukraine, he's going straight into Poland. We cannot reward Putin for his criminal actions where they are murdering people, raping people, kidnapping children. There are tens of thousands of children that have been abducted from Ukraine and brought into Russia. Why? Because if your mom or dad works at the power plant, that we need your Ukrainian parents to keep on working on that plant, and Putin doesn't want you to stop working there, he's going to keep your children even longer, and who knows what else he'll do. He's a beast. He's an animal. He's a dictator. We cannot let this become normalized. Thank you.
What are the people in Minneapolis going to think? What are the people in Milwaukee going to think? What are the people in Memphis going to think? What are the people in Miami going to think? What kind of thinking is this? This is the thinking of the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. These are Republicans. This has nothing to do with republicanism. This has to do with the Democrat liberal order. These people are everywhere in our party. They're going to get us all killed, and they don't care because they're on the payroll. If I looked up every one of those Congress people and checked what the campaign contributions were from defense contractors, they'd all have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pocket from these people. And it goes right into their pocket because they use these campaign funds like piggy banks. And I'm going to tell you, that's totally legal. See, the whole system is rigged and a grift on the American people. I'm going out for dinner. I'm going to go out and have $1,000 dinner. And I'm going to have a campaign meeting. Everybody eats ribeyes. The whole thing is wrong. And we're going to see that tonight in a clip I'm going to play from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Hopefully YouTube will let it go up because this problem is old. This is a black and white film, and these issues of graft and corruption and abuse, these issues were front and center in the 1930s. We've only gotten more sophisticated as a people at robbing and stealing and abusing. Let's listen to this next clip of Viktor Orban and Ursula the Sea Witch from Europe.
The European Union has isolated itself from the United States now, isolated himself from China because of the trade war, and isolated himself from Russia because of the sanction policy. So if somebody is isolated here, is the European Union as such. Hungary has a good relation to all three directions, so we are not isolated at all.
This is Viktor Orban, viewed as an authoritarian, illiberal dictator.
Is more than right. So we have to spend more. The question is, for what? Because now we have various options. The first, we have to spend more money to make stronger our own military capacities and defense capacities. But at the same time, somebody should finance the Ukrainian army, which is a huge amount of money, and the Americans will not part of that in the future. Then we have to finance somehow the state of Ukraine, because otherwise it would collapse. So I think these three things together, three packages together, is just simply too much.
And are you worried about
I think Europe cannot afford that. Hungary definitely not.
This is Orban at a Brussels, Belgium meeting on the issue. And here comes the sea witch.
There's a huge pressure on all member states to increase their defense spending and to have literally a surge in defense. And therefore, the plan, the rearm plan with the 5 elements was very much welcomed by all leaders. I am absolutely confident that it will be used.
This is the European Union members trying to be sure this war continues. Here comes President Macron of France. He's talking here about extending France's nuclear shield as a nuclear deterrent for other EU countries. How insane is this? How insane is this? He is offering to confront Russian nuclear capabilities. And here he is himself, the little prince, walking around, shaking hands. Everybody loves him because he is the European proxy. Yes, this war has gone on for hundreds of years. England, France, and Germany drive the EU. All 3 countries have been engaged in war with Russia for hundreds of years. And we're blaming the Russians. Yes, the Russians have culpability, but let's just listen to the complete opposite side of the street, the other street corner. Here's Vladimir Putin. I will translate for you. Western elites have a strong desire to freeze the existing unjust state of affairs in international relations. For 500 years, they have been leeching off other nations. This is a reference to colonialism. They tore apart peoples of Africa, exploited Latin America, and the countries of Asia. Hard to argue with that analysis. For centuries, they have grown accustomed, listen to this, to stuffing their bellies with human flesh and their pockets with money. But they must understand that this vampire feast is coming to an end. Western elites, yes. He's talking about the colonial period, which extends up till today, the domination of the world by these Western elites, the so-called post-World War II Democrat liberal order, which President Trump is bringing to an end if he is given the power to do so, and that is going to require us to be involved in politics. Just that simple. Can't get it done without we the people. He can try. Let's listen to President Trump, number 5, to close out this segment.
Well, I think what's going to happen is Ukraine wants to make a deal because I don't think they have a choice. I also think that Russia wants to make a deal because in a certain different way that only I know. Only I know. They have no choice either.
Are you still thinking of going to Saudi Arabia and meeting with Putin about this?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm going to Saudi Arabia.
Mr. President,
Well, that's a bunch of different perspectives. So while President Trump is trying to create a ceasefire, other forces are trying to make sure that the war continues. What kind of people? What kind of people? What kind of people? And why do we tolerate them? Why do we tolerate them in the Republican Party of Minnesota or the Republican Party of any state? These people. They're not tolerable. They're entitled to their opinion. But if we, the people, come into the parties and say, hey, we want peace, they're out, we're in. Let's get to work. There has been these ongoing truce negotiations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a statement. Quote, today we have made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted. which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable. That's progress. Um, Zelensky's come a long way since his little meltdown in the Oval Office. Come a long way, because he's been told by President Trump that if you keep this up, you're out, buddy. And once he agreed to play ball with President Trump, aid and intelligence that had been withheld was restored. The United States wields tremendous power in this game, and it's not ultimate power. It's tremendous power. So a lot of forces arrayed against President Trump in his administration, in the Congress, in the party, in the states, and around the world. I get a kind of kick out of watching these MAGA hat wearing globalists who are just sandbagging we the people. Well, they're not sandbagging me. I know who you are. I'm going to keep calling you out because I want to live and I want my children to live. And I don't mean in some kind of post-industrial bankrupt America where Republican politicians in collusion with Democrats have decarbonized our energy grid decades before it was necessary to save the planet, while at the same time running up the debt of the federal government and most state governments. And if you don't have energy, you can't pay off that debt. Oh, what's that called? It's called bankruptcy. And what happens when you're bankrupt? You're poor and dependent. That's a plan. And if you can't see it, please keep looking at it. And when the light bulb goes off in everybody's head collectively, we'll turf all these people out, every last one of them, because they're all in on it. Well, not maybe every one of them. But we certainly need people with sacred honor to enter this political process and try to maintain the republic and to create a world that's safe and well for our children. Because that's not what we've got. We got a bunch of people making excuses. And, like Julia Coleman told me that I've never been elected, so I don't understand. No, Julia, I understand all too well what being a collaborationist is all about. I understand all too well what being a professional politician is all about. Not my interest. I don't want to collaborate, and I don't want to grift off the people. It's not my thing. I'm going to stand here and search for truth, and when I'm wrong, I will apologize. I don't claim I know everything, not far from it, but I can smell a grift, and I can see the plan, and I don't care if people understood it or not, if you voted for it, or if you didn't stand up and scream against it. That's another thing about politicians. Oh, I don't want to rock the apple cart. I'm going to alienate the liberals in my district. I might not get reelected. You're not here for a job. You're here to represent the people. You don't need legislation to call out fraud. You just need to identify it and let the people know what you've known for decades. What you've known for decades. You just didn't want to tell anybody. Now all of a sudden it's fashionable. That really pisses me off. The head of the NATO, Secretary General Mark Rutte, has now confirmed that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Well, hey, that was the whole cause of the controversy. If they would have done that 5 years ago, we'd have never had this war. Progress, I guess, after 1 million people got maimed. This week we had two very notable things happen in the Middle East, because again, there was a ceasefire which is now unwound. The Israelis are attacking again in the Gaza Strip, and the Houthis of Yemen, that their proper name is Ansar Allah, announced this past Tuesday that they were going to resume attacks on Red Sea shipping and military vessels patrolling the waters. Well, President Trump said, don't do that. Please play number 6.
Smoke billows in the night sky above Yemen's capital, Sana'a. As strikes launched by the US hit dozens of targets across the country. Donald Trump was playing golf at his Florida estate when he announced the attacks on his Truth Social platform. He wrote that time was up for what he called Houthi terrorists, whose attacks must stop. He said if they didn't, hell would rain down upon them like nothing they'd seen before. He's referring to more than 100 attacks on cargo vessels carried out by the group in an act of solidarity with Palestine since the war on Gaza began. But since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas was agreed, which was before Trump's inauguration, there have been none. The Houthi leadership says Trump's claims about a threat to international navigation in the Bab al-Mandab Strait are false and intended to mislead international public opinion. Some US voices have expressed concern that President Trump's actions may not get the intended result.
For a president who came in wanting to avoid war and wanting to be a man of peace, he's going about it the wrong way. You can protect or you can avoid trouble in the Red Sea through diplomacy. There are many paths that can be used before you resort to war.
They say it's a major departure from the previous US administration's approach.
When you read the press releases from Central Command during the Biden administration, they were clearly lawyered to say this was a limited strike in response to a direct attack on U.S. people. It was basically to avoid triggering a debate within the Democratic Party on the War Powers Act and whether there should be a vote on actually, having a resolution of war against the Houthis. I think that President Trump isn't as concerned about that. And so in his remarks, and it's always, you may not want to take them literally, but he said that he was targeting Houthi leaders, for example. That hasn't happened before.
Yemen's health ministry says several people have been killed or injured. In a statement, the Houthis condemned the targeting of civilians, saying they consider the action a war crime. Paul King, Al Jazeera.
So that was a report by Al Jazeera. There will be those that criticize me for using Al Jazeera as a news source because it is a different street corner. I'm informed by Al Jazeera. I don't like everything they do. I don't like everything the New York Times does. I don't like everything the Washington Post does. I try to look at all these different sources to try to cobble together a picture. And this is the picture I want to share with you. Because Donald Trump, our new president, says that hell's going to rain down upon the Houthis, the bombs don't have extra power. All the president can do is intensify the air attacks. It's not going to end the Houthis. They're used to this. The way that they would be ended is a ground war, which is kind of going in a strange direction if you're looking for peace. Now, people are going to say, and I remember Thomas Massey posted up the countries and the companies that got the big benefits from President Trump escalating this controversy and this war with the Houthis. And what Massey was trying to say was that there was no benefit for the American people. Well, I'm going to tell you that when that Red Sea is not open, and that Suez Canal cannot be traversed by international shipping, ocean freight rates go up. They can go up a lot. And that will add to the upward price pressure on goods that are imported into the United States. And people are going to say, well, why? Those goods are going to Europe. Well, it's all one big system. And if the boats can't go through the Suez Canal and they have to traverse around the tip of Africa, it adds tremendous cost because it's a lot farther transit. It adds time. It changes the schedule of the buses, so to speak, and it increases costs on the entire system. So what President Trump is saying is, don't increase the cost of the flat screens, Houthis. Only I can do that. Okay, cool. That's what's going on. There's many ways to look at this, and I'm trying to look at it in a way that is positive because I certainly see a lot of negatives. President Trump is certainly trying to end the war in the Ukraine. There's now an escalation in the Middle East. The Gazan ceasefire has unwound. The Israeli Air Force is now bombing again in Gaza. The Houthis are now attacking shipping, including a U.S. aircraft carrier in the Red Sea. There is a lot of assets being moved around to threaten Iran. It doesn't look very good, but there's going to be change. I mean, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree, but I am seeing the President Trump, not maintaining a status quo, but moving things to something different. I don't want to see war. I don't want to see bombs being used. There has to be a change. I don't know how we get from where we are to peace in the Middle East. I pray about it all the time. Perhaps if there was a ceasefire with the Russians and Putin could be brought back into the G7 and brought back fully into a status as a great power who could then add to the dialogue, certainly Russia and China can work with Iran to diffuse this situation. President Trump is forcing that. Of course, when you force things, they can break. In the meantime, our allies, our alleged allies, that'd be the British, are working against this full speed. You know, President Trump in 2018 unmasked the Chinese is not really our friends. He's now unmasked the leftists is not really down with America. Pretty clear. And I think the American people are seeing it. The British are getting unmasked. They've been in a great period of rapprochement with the United States since Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan had their platonic love affair back in the 80s. Let's roll it back. We supported the British in World War II, but President Roosevelt made them de-empire, to make up a word. And a lot of their empire was taken from them by the United States. But they infected our institutions of higher learning, and they've really taken over the entire dialogue at the policy level by being sure that the people that get PhDs in our elite universities have an Atlanticist outlook. And they've been manipulating this country since the country started. And they're not really our friends, in my opinion. They're not really our friends. They're running their own game. And this is becoming very evident by their actions in Europe and the actions of the French. The Germans are a little bit trapped. They got the far left and the far right constraining German action. But the English and the French are very committed to being sure that this peace effort fails. And they're sneaky about it, but you can see it. The English are trying to work with the Polish government to subvert this. They're working with the Ukrainian government. They're trying to paint Trump as a Putin sympathizer, a Putin sycophant. They're getting shown up here. They don't want this war brought to an end by the Americans. And my statement is, fine. You guys want to fight it out? Proceed. President Trump, let's get out of Europe. Let's leave. Let's take care of Minneapolis and Milwaukee and Memphis and Miami and all the other towns and cities in America that are coming apart at the seams. Let's leave Europe for the Europeans. I have no love for the Europeans. I have no hatred for them. I know what they did to my family. Hey, that's personal. Doesn't mean I hate them. That's why I'm here in the United States, to not have to put up with their elitist, with their top-down, monarchical attitudes, which have been transformed from hereditary kings and queens to what? the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. There's no difference, really. It's a rebranding. And these people can go bite a hog in the ass as far as I'm concerned. That's not what the people in Minnesota and the Republican Party think. Most of the Republican Party of Minnesota thinks that we need to be involved in these things. Okay, great. We got a cleavage in the party. The House and Senate have passed a continuing resolution, and President Trump has signed it, maintaining government funding at basically what it was, but with 100 pages of alterations, which the Democrats, their heads were blown off their shoulders about this, and they were going to oppose it in total. And then somebody had an intellectual breakthrough. That'd be Chuck Schumer. And his breakthrough was, if we don't vote for this bill in the Senate, because it had already passed the House, one Democrat crossed lines, and then Thomas Massey crossed lines. Okay, great. It passed by about 3 votes, went to the Senate, and initially Chuck Schumer said, and I think I played it either on the radio show or I played it on the podcast, he said, we're not going to support this. And then he started thinking, he said, my God, if we close the government down, we're playing right in the hands of Donald Trump. And they were afraid of being targeted by the people as the obstructionist party that closed down the government. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Democrats voted for the continuing resolution. Let me tell you how tricky these people are. How tricky. Because when you really get into this pit with these folks, man, are they tricky. Chuck Schumer voted for the continuing resolution. He doesn't have to run again until 2028. People have short memories. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Democrat Nevada, she's also good till 28. Dick Durbin from Illinois, hey, he's up for election in the next cycle in 26, but guess what? It's Illinois. He's not too concerned. He's the only one that put something on the line here. John Fetterman, Pennsylvania, 28. Kirsten Gillibrand, New York, 28. Maggie Hassan, Democrat, New Hampshire, 28. Oh, excuse me. Gillibrand's out to 31. She doesn't have to run again till 2030. Hassan, 28. Angus King, he's an independent from Maine. He's not running again till 2030. Gary Peters voted from Michigan. He's not seeking re-election, so, he had nothing to lose. Jean Shaheen from New Hampshire, she's also not seeking re-election. She had nothing to lose. And then Brian Schatz from Hawaii, he's a 28 baby. So basically what I'm driving at here is the people that voted for the continuing resolution didn't really have any skin in the game. The people that are up for a re-election in the next cycle in 26, they weren't playing. See how slick these people are? Because it's theater. It's just theater. It's not real. It's not real. Now, on the Republican side, man, do we have problems. As part of this bill, Rand Paul introduced an amendment, I think it was number 1966, that would have cut foreign aid through USAID. No, it's Amendment 1266, excuse me. And it was aimed at codifying these foreign aid cuts that have been identified by Secretary Rubio and the Department of Government Efficiency. This would have codified these cuts into law. And man, this was so intense for these uniparty Republicans that they came out in masse to oppose it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 Republicans voted with all the Democrats to defeat that amendment of Rand Paul. I'm going to read their names. This is how screwed we are as the American people. These people have an R after their name. They're not Republicans. These people believe in the post-World War II Democrat liberal order, or, as we're going to see in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, they're on somebody's payroll and they sold out decades ago. Sullivan, Alaska. He's running in 26. You can get rid of him if you're watching me from Alaska. McConnell, hey, not a surprise, Kentucky. He's not seeking re-election. Cassidy, awful. A doctor from Louisiana. He's running in 26. No, he's not. Guess what? He's not seeking re-election. So, no problem for him. Collins, Maine. She's running in 26. Hyde Smith, Mississippi. Ooh, running in 26. Tillis, the worst. Republican, North Carolina. He's running in 26. Mullen, Mark Wayne Mullen. He's probably going to leave the Senate and run for governor. Oh, there's Lindsey Graham. He's running in 26. He feels secure in South Carolina. He knows his state party there. Rounds, South Dakota. He's running in 26. He knows his state party in South Dakota. Capito, West Virginia. She's vulnerable. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 senators, Republicans, could get primaried in the next cycle in the states of Alaska, Maine, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, South Dakota, and West Virginia, if you'd all go into the party. I mean, there's plenty of time. We can get rid of these people. And that we're not done. Here's the people that don't have to run again for another 4 or 6 years. Murkowski, Alaska, Boozman, Arkansas, Crapo, Idaho, Young, Indiana, Grassley, Iowa, Moran, Kansas, Wicker, Mississippi, Fisher, Nebraska, Ricketts, Nebraska, Kramer, North Dakota, Hovind, North Dakota, Langford, Oklahoma, Scott, Tim Scott, South Carolina. Now we know who he is permanently. Thune, South Dakota. That's the Senate Majority Leader. And Barrasso in Wyoming. These people, the 26 of them, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. We're so far from having a government that represents we the people, because we the people don't want to do the work. If we don't self-govern, remember, in the void we leave by not self-governing, the worst scumbags in America fill the void where we should be. The worst of the worst. Of course, they all graduated from Yale and Harvard. They all served in the military. They all wear U.S. flags on their lapel. They all dress beautiful. They wear white ties, white shirts and beautiful ties. Beautiful. They all have the picture of the wife, the kids. These people are crap people. Crap. And they just exist in the parties because the American citizens give them the space to do so. This is so easy to fix. And if you have an idea about how we can encourage American citizens to self-govern, please put it in the live chat, put it in the comments, go to support@target.com, support@target.com. We need to organize. We need to organize fast. And if we do not do this, these people will defeat President Trump wearing MAGA hats. They'll keep their hats on. They'll keep saying they love President Trump while they saw the legs out from underneath them. The Democrat Party placed a lot of stock in the price of eggs. Particularly Amy Klobuchar leading the charge here, my senator here from Minnesota. Here we're coming to you from the studios of Free People Radio here in Minneapolis, the belly of the beast, communism in the upper Midwest, where we have a communist senator, 2 of them actually. And Senator Klobuchar kept going on talking about the price of eggs. And you know what? Price of eggs plummeted because as soon as President Trump got in there, he dealt with it. Let's not confuse the price of goods and inflation. This is a very important distinction. Prices and inflation are 2 completely different things, although the Democrat would have we the people believe they're the same. Prices go up and go down. Inflation is a measure of government deficit spending and the creation of fiat currency instead of the creation of wealth through productivity, creativity, and work. No, when you just create money, you create more of the supply. Therefore, more supply. Prices go up. You're devaluing the currency. That is different than the price of eggs. The price of eggs went up. The price of eggs came down. Let's not get confused. Anyway, but that took away their argument on eggs. You're not going to hear anything more about eggs. They're probably going to switch to the price of flat screen TVs next. When's the last time you bought a TV, Tanner?
I think last time we talked about it was 5 years. I
Great.
don't know. I don't keep track of those things. I just had one for so long.
Right. So, hey, price TVs went up 10%. Okay, great. I can't remember the last time I bought a television. Part of the reason is I don't watch television. So much news. Let's get to the heart of the issue tonight. Could you please play number 7? You've probably seen it, but it's so stunning. For those of you who haven't seen it, take a look at this. And if you have seen it, it doesn't hurt to see it again. Tanner, had you seen that before?
No. What prison is that?
That's in El Salvador. That video was found by me, and I found it many days ago, but it's pretty widely distributed now. That was from the personal account on X of the president of El Salvador. And I didn't even check if it was copyright protected, because obviously it's not. That's a message. And I'm just curious, before I comment on this, how does that strike you, young man?
I don't know. It's happy I'm not a part of a gang that's put in there. That looks pretty serious.
Well, that's the point. And I'm going to urge all of my viewers and listeners, and thank you for participating in the Professor Penn podcast community. We are a community, we're a political action community. And I'm a big proponent, as you know, of you doing your own research. There is a place you can go called whitehouse.gov. Whitehouse.gov. And President Trump, man, he is transparent. He posts all his news that he thinks is the news that matters and all of his executive orders. And on there, several days ago, was posted up a proclamation. It's called the Invocation of the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by Tren de Agua. TDA is designated a foreign terrorist organization with thousands of members, many of whom who have unlawfully infiltrated the United States and are conducting irregular warfare and undertaking hostile actions against the United States. TDA operates in conjunction with Cartel de los Sols, the Nicolas Maduro regime-sponsored narco-terrorism enterprise based in Venezuela, and commits brutal crimes including murders, kidnappings, extortions, and human drug and weapons trafficking. TDA has engaged in and continues to engage in mass illegal migration to the United States to further its objectives of harming United States citizens, undermining public safety, and supporting the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing democratic nations in the Americas, including the United States. And it goes on. Tanner, it'd be nice if you could post up, as I'm talking about this proclamation, this executive order. The point here is that the president has done something quite extreme, really. He has invoked a many hundreds of years old law, this act, to round up and deport these subversive elements in our society. And this is a tough one, right? Because on the one hand, we want these people out of the country because they're here for not a good reason. On the other hand, they're being denied due process under this act. And Tom Homan was asked, and I'm not going to play it just because there isn't time tonight, but Tom Homan was interviewed and he said, he was asked, this Alien Enemies Act is hundreds of years old. How can you use it? It's an old law. And he said, well, the Constitution is older. We're still using that, aren't we? It's a good response. And of course, people sued, and this suit went before the judge to protect these. This is a paramilitary or military organization that's in our cities like Minneapolis, Memphis, Miami, Milwaukee. They're in our cities. Why are they here? How did they get here? What is their purpose? And somebody sued and said, judge, this is in D.C., a federal judge. These people are being denied due process. Stop these deportations. And the judge ruled to stop the deportations. And he made a verbal pronouncement. Between the verbal pronouncement and when the written order came down, the planes took off and flew these paramilitary members down to El Salvador, where the El Salvadorian government was cooperative with President Trump and said, we'll house them in our max security prisons. And remember, El Salvador was the most crime-ridden country in the Western Hemisphere until President Bukele was elected, Nayib Bukele, and he transformed that country. And he, too, was accused of being a dictator and a totalitarian, but he ridded his country of the scourge of gangs, which are really paramilitary organizations. So we're stuck here now. We're stuck here. We really are, because this is right on the verge of when the Constitution doesn't work anymore. And I was listening to our favorite Morning Joe this morning driving in on MSNBC, or as President Trump likes to call it, MSDNC, and the ever-present Gene Robinson of the Washington Post said that we were in a constitutional crisis because the administration was ignoring federal judge orders. And that is probably true. And I know where the president is coming from. He's got 3 years and 9 months to save us from a leftist takeover of the country. And that I do believe. Now, if you're a leftist and you're watching me, you know, what can I say? The system's been rigged since the 60s. I've been watching this my entire life. It is mostly rigged by educated people who have advanced degrees, mostly in law, some in medicine, some PhDs in, political science, economics. We're talking about our most educated people who are educated in our elite academic institutions and have been given over to the European intellectual tradition, its twin towers of Darwinism and Marxism. That's what they believe. And they believe that the rest of us that perhaps believed in Christ need re-education. So they've been working on re-education. First of all, our kids, generation after generation after at least 3 generations of Americans now have been educated in a secular, anti-Christ environment in the schools. That's my opinion. Hey, I went to school. I went to college in the 70s. It was already deeply committed to Darwinism and Marxism. That's why I'm not teaching in the university system. I can't stand these people. They're so arrogant that they're smarter than you and me, that they're educated. Educated in what? You know how to take tests? You know how to talk? Do you know how to skin a deer? Tanner, do you know how to take care of a deer when you shoot it?
Yeah.
You see any PhDs out there when you're out hunting? There's a few, right?
Not where I hunt, no.
Great.
There's a little team of people. We don't talk to them. We call them the Cityots. Because they don't hunt very well. They're not very sportsmanlike.
You want to stay away from those folks, don't you?
Yeah, we don't hunt with them.
You know, my partner, Rob, is out hunting mule deer today down in South Texas. He's taking the week off and he's hunting and fishing out on the land. I love this, okay? I love the fact that he's truly self-governing. And we have lost the essential skills to survive and replaced those with a set of ideas. They're only meaningful if the post-World War II Democrat liberal order continues. If we go back to a Republican form of governance, hey, these people got to look for jobs. And what President Trump is doing is he's look at what these leftists are doing. They've let these people, this is how he looks at it, and maybe you and I agree about it, because I'm going to come out and say the Biden administration let these people pour into the country, and they'd been here long before Biden. We really can't blame it on Biden. You know, President Eisenhower ran a campaign called Operation Wetback to deport people back in the 50s. So, yeah, it was called Operation Wetback.
I know, that
You're
one
laughing.
just always kills me because that's so bad.
It's bad, but that's what it was called. Look it up on Wikipedia.
Oh, I believe you.
I'm not
We've
making
talked
it
about
up.
it
It is.
before.
He's coughing and laughing at the same time. Yeah, you know, that's a good one. Anyhow, my point is, these people are here. Why are they here? Their presence here, who does it benefit? What is the plan that our political class has tolerated? You know, this is why I went after Andrew Myers here in 45A when he came out in support of the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, saying, I support whatever you do, on the very same day that the Hennepin County Sheriff said that they would not participate in assisting ICE remove these people. You know, come on now. These people are here to bring down our country. The plan, we have to get clear about what the plan was. One day we're going to run out of hydrocarbon energy. But that day is way in the future. So there was this hysteria was created that carbon is going to end the planet. So we have to decarbonize. So Republicans and Democrats alike, because there was a lot of money involved in it, voted, duly elected representatives voted to decarbonize, while at the same time running up the debt to the point where we don't have enough energy to service the debt, guaranteeing bankruptcy and system collapse, and then imported an entire class of paramilitary trained killers to be on the streets to ensure the need for martial law. I mean, it's a plan. I mean, it's just, it's not accidental. And for those of you who want to say it's an accident, keep studying, and one day the light bulb will go off and you'll say, my goodness, who are the elected officials that allowed this to happen? We got to get involved in politics and turf these people out if we want to live as free people in a republic, because that is what the plan was, to end the republic, to end freedom, to make us dependent on government. And when America falls, that's the end. Worldwide communism. This is a problem, though, because it is actually the executive branch in conflict with the judicial branch. And this is where you start to have a breakdown of a constitutional process. Another example is the arrest of this student from Colombia, Mahmoud Khalil, who is being held without what the left would say is due process. What President Trump would say is he's here on a green card. He's violated his green card requirements, but there's no charging of him. Charge him. Charge him. Let's understand that we can do two things at once. We can get these anti-Americans out, because if they're not citizens, they don't have the rights of citizens. Suddenly, being a citizen has a value. When we let these people in the country to rape and pillage, our citizenship has a lot less value. So now let's get these people out, and, as much as possible, which I think is going to happen, let's use the judicial process to defend the right of the executive branch to defend the American people. Who are these politicians that are not defending the safety of my children? And you know what? If you do this, you're going to get called out. Now, I'm going to talk for the last half hour about politics, and specifically about Minnesota politics, which is just a metaphor for the rest of the country. I lost my election in 45 to be chair. It wasn't a surprise. If you look at the thumbnail for tonight's episode, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. There's a red arrow, and standing behind me on my right side, behind my right shoulder, was the chair of our party, Alex Plekish, standing on the stage with a Royce White for Senate sign in 2024, screaming and cheering for Royce. He won't even talk to me or Royce. He didn't like us then. He doesn't like us now. And I marveled at his attempt to be the best politician he could be. Because, of course, standing on that stage was good for him. But he doesn't support Royce. He doesn't support President Trump. He doesn't support the movement of the American citizens. And he's getting called out for it. And, of course, the party doesn't like it. They want to invoke Reagan's rule, never criticize fellow Republicans. Well, it's not about Republicans and Democrats anymore. And, now I'm going to try to run for the chair of CD3, not to win or lose, but just to speak truth to power and to search for truth and to find the people that have the cojones to stand up and actually self-govern. The parties are kind of clubs. Most people are in it for all kinds of reasons other than self-governance. That's my opinion. And, of course, the party's going to watch this. I don't even know if they're going to let me run. And that's cool. If you don't, fine. But there are people in this state, Republicans in this state, that want to win. We do not want to be a perpetually also-ran party. We believe we can win by searching for truth with the citizens of Minnesota, with the citizens of the United States of America. And we had a special election here. The Democrat in the House, the Republicans had a temporary majority because the Democrat who ran didn't live in his district. So the court, because there was overwhelming evidence, they voided his election, and there was a special election, and there was all this Sturm and Drang and money raising and Republicans going in the district and door knocking where there is no Republican Party, because the Republican Party does not practice the precinct strategy. Because if we had American citizens coming into the party, they couldn't control the party. See, they can expel me because I'm alone. They can expel, let's say, Mega Jesse, he's alone. They can expel Jake Barochik, he's alone. They can expel individuals. But when we're organized and we come into the party, they're going to lose their seats. So rather than actually get enough people into the party to win, they would rather just lose. And let me tell you how bad they lost. They got waxed. Only 24% of Republicans that showed up in the last election, in the presidential election, showed up to vote, and it was a wipeout. 60% of the total votes went for the Democrat, and it was just terrible. In addition, in the Senate of Minnesota, there is a Democrat senator who is accused of burglary. Her name is Senator Nicole Mitchell, and she faces 2 felony charges, and the Republicans tried to expel her from the Senate to try to get into a tie situation there or force another election in her district. They lost that deal. So that's 0 for 2. And then 0 for 3, they have this recall thing going on here where they recalled, the Republican Party sued to recall the Democrat legislators who didn't show up when all of these problems were going on. And the Supreme Court of Minnesota smacked that down. 0 for 3, Republican leadership. Now, I'm a Republican. I want to win. I personally think this is, and I argue with people in the party about this, and I understand their perspective. It's activity without anything productive. Productivity would be building the base of the Republican Party by actually creating a precinct strategy in every precinct in the state of Minnesota. That will work. Well, the party doesn't want to do it. Okay, we the citizens can do it, and then we can be Republicans and do it. And I don't want to expel anybody from the party. I would rather beat the communists. So for those of you who are listening, who can really unify this party? I can work with the neocon rhino warhawks because, hey, I've been working with them my whole life. I voted for George Bush. I got my bona fides. I voted for H.W. Bush. I understand the neocon position. I can be very respectful and kind and get along with everybody. But you folks can't work with the American citizens that believe in President Trump's agenda. The party's going to break in too. And then where are you going to be? You're going to be up this creek is where you're going to be. This party is right on the verge of fracturing. People come to me all the time and tell me, let's form a third party. And I always say to them, no, let's work within the grand old party and Abraham Lincoln's party and restore the brand. Let's start with discovering what republicanism is all about. Let's go on an educational tour. Let's draw a distinction between the Democrat liberal order and republicanism. Hey, we can do it. We just haven't done it yet. Now, who's going to unify the party? Do you really think an Alex Plekish or a David Hann, these type of people, or some of these elected officials like a Mark Coran or a Jim Nash are really fooling any of the citizens that didn't come out to vote? If the Republican Party was a big deal for people, Do you think only 24% of the people who voted for President Trump would have been the total sum of the voters in the special election? No, those people came out to vote for President Trump. They didn't come out to vote for what happens in Minnesota because they don't care, because they know it's a scam. They don't want bipartisanship, as Julia Coleman is talking about. They want resistance to communism, real resistance, the kind of resistance that does not need legislation. It needs honesty in the search for truth. Play number 8, and let's get to the heart of the matter.
Get up there with that lady that's up on top of this Capitol dome, that lady that stands for liberty. Take a look at this country through her eyes if you really want to see something. And you won't just see scenery. You'll see the whole parade of what man's carved out for himself after centuries of fighting. And fighting for something better than just jungle. So he can stand on his own 2 feet, free and decent, like he was created, no matter what his race, color, or creed. That's what you see. There's no place out there for graft, or greed, or lies, or compromise with human liberties. And if that's what the grown-ups have done with this world that was given to them, then we better get those boys' camps started fast and see what the kids can do. And it's not too late. Because this country is bigger than the Taylors, or you, or me, or anything else. Great principles don't get lost once they come to light. They're right here. You just have to see them again. I guess this is just another lost cause, Mr. Payne. All you people don't know about lost causes. Mr. Payne does. He said once they were the only causes worth fighting for. And he fought for them once. For the only reason any man ever fights for them. Because of just one plain simple rule. Love thy neighbor. And in this world today full of hatred, a man who knows that one rule has a great trust. You know that rule, Mr. Payne. And I loved you for it just as my father did. And you know that you fight for the lost causes harder than for any others. Yes, you even die for them. Like a man we both knew, Mr. Payne. You think I'm licked? You all think I'm licked. Well, I'm not licked. And I'm going to stay right here and fight for this lost cause. Even if this room gets filled with lies like these. And the Taylors and all their armies come marching into this place. Somebody will listen to me.
He's okay, just fainted.
Well, there's the old saying that there's nothing new under the sun. That's a black and white. That's a Capra film. Jimmy Stewart, the great Jimmy Stewart, and the great Claude Rains. Claude Rains playing the part of Senator Payne. That was the climax scene. Jimmy Stewart was appointed to go to the Senate as kind of a placeholder. And when he got there, he came into full awareness of how corrupt that place was. And in great poetic license, Frank Capra, as Senator Payne say I'm not fit to be a senator. Of course, these people don't do that now. They just sit there and take the cash. And, here's the two great issues that we've been talking about on the Professor Penn podcast almost since the beginning. The corruption and love your neighbor. Right there. This has been going on. Did you know? You don't know this movie, do you?
No, I've never heard of it.
I mean, it's a good movie. You can add it to your list. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The point is, Mr. Smith is everyone. It's in every person. It's the American citizens getting involved in politics. We don't have to go to Washington. We just got to go to our local meetings and start to hold these people accountable. And guess what? They're professionals. They'll be better if we're there watching them. And they hate me personally because I'm calling them out because they're not able to fool me because I've been in it long enough to read all their BS. We just want our elected officials to stand up for the search for truth. Young leaders like Royce White. And I went with Royce this past Saturday. We drove to New Ulm together. It was another one of these magical mystery tours. I picked Royce up at the studio right here after he had done his Real America's Voice morning show, and I want to give that a plug. Last week, I was at the news desk for Real America's Voice, giving it a little bit of exposure on the Professor Penn podcast. I hope all of you know that Royce has an every Saturday morning show, the Royce White Show on Real America's Voice, 8 to 9 Central Time, 9 to 10 Eastern, right before Steve Bannon's War Room comes on. It's a big deal. So Royce did that show. I came up here, picked him up. We hopped in the car, and we drove to New Ulm. And I'm going to tell you, we hit something I've never been in before, blizzardous conditions. So I'm driving down there. We left the cities. It was about 40 degrees. We drove for 20 minutes. It was below 32, and the snow was a-blowing, and it was whiteout conditions. Boy, I haven't driven in anything like that because I was out in the country in the middle of a snowstorm. It was crazy. And we're just driving along quiet because when you're driving in conditions like that, concentration is important. I heard this voice in my head, use the force, Luke. Yep, I heard it, use the force, Luke, because couldn't see anything. And we had to get there on time, so we're trucking down these highways at 55, 60, 65 miles an hour in whiteout conditions. It was a thrill. Have you ever done that before, Tanner?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't, and it was a thrill. Anyhow, we got down to New Ulm. We got there, and we showed up, and, everybody's nice. I had asked the local head honcho down there, Aaron Ferris. I'd sent him a text, Dear Aaron Ferris, we'd like to, this is David Penn. I'm working with the Royce White campaign for Senate. Would you let us come down? Royce would like to speak at your CD1 convention. And he sent me back an answer, not Dear David, not how you doing, because he knows who I am. One word, yes. Thanks, Aaron. That was very friendly. But we drove down there. It was cool. And we got there just in time to listen to Alex Plekish, chairman of our party, address the crowd. And Alex was making a plea for unity. All the usual suspects were there, like Kendall Qualls, all the unity people, all the people that want to see the grift continue. That post-World War II Democrat liberal order grift, where all the money goes uphill and all the shit comes down here. That grift. All the money goes uphill and all the shit comes downhill. I'm going to say it a third time. All the money goes uphill and all the shit comes downhill. That grift, which we need unity to maintain, and that unity's kind of falling apart. And then I heard it with my own ears. Alex said the magic. I don't like that word rhino or something like that. Let's not use that word rhino. And the crowd listened and they gave him polite applause, sitting in their seats. And then it was Royce's turn. And just like they did to me in SD 45 when they shut me up, they gave Royce 3 minutes to talk. 3 minutes. A candidate for Senate at a convention. In my opinion, if we really cared about this country, these candidates could talk until the cows came home. That would be the way I would do it if I was in charge. I would never close a conversation with the candidate. I would have a question and answer session. You know, the argument is everybody wants to get home for lunch. Really? Really? $37 trillion in debt? We're deporting a paramilitary organization. There's a war in the Ukraine which could teeter into a nuclear confrontation because that asshole Macron is offering to extend nuclear deterrence to the other countries. And then we have a breakdown of the ceasefire in the Middle East. And we're not going to let a candidate for U.S. Senate speak more than 3 minutes. And Royce, he started talking very nicely. People were listening. It was beautiful. And then the little, what I would call the Robert's Rule of Order Brigade, sitting in the front row, held up a sign. 1 minute left. And Royce kept talking. 30 seconds left. Royce kept talking. And then the sign went up, you're done. And guess what? Royce kept talking. They didn't know what to do, and he kept talking. And now people were getting a little fidgety because he was getting intense. And it was not what he was intellectually composing, it was the words that were coming through him that started to grip the audience. And here's what I wrote about it. And I posted this on X. Please follow me at Prof. Penn Podcast on X. Royce White went to CD1. Today was a historical event that is as yet of unknown importance. Alex Plekish, chair of MnGOP, spoke first of unity using faith in a way that seemed blasphemous to me. And I'm just going to make a sidebar. I've heard Alex use this speech before because he has a stump speech, and he says that Republicans have faith. You know, what he was really doing was saying unity in this post-World War II Democrat liberal order grift is wrapped in the cloth of faith, making it holy. And to me, that seems blasphemous because the core of that order is war and poverty. And there is nothing Christ-like about war and poverty. Let me continue. Royce took the stage in front of an audience that was besieged by an effort to separate them from their senses. Kendall Qualls, Alex Plekish, Finstad, all the Uniparty people showing up to convince these CD1 delegates of the need for unity. Perhaps had the blizzard winds we drove through kept us away, the delegates would not have found a way to express their disgust and frustration, their hopes and motivations. Please stay tuned. Royce was unusually eloquent. The Roberts Rule Brigade sought to still his voice, just as that brigade did to me in 45, but Royce continued to speak undeterred. With each moment that they could not still his voice, the words that came through him gained in meaning and therefore in power. And here's what he said. Why can't we use the word rhino? What kind of scam is that? What do we call Liz Cheney or Nikki Haley or Kendall Qualls or Adam Schwartzy? What do we call the people who would send our sons and daughters off to die in faraway wars for profit and bankrupt our country and we the people to do it? He said something like that. Something. There's a little bit of poetic license. One lone delegate turned his back on Royce and walked out of the auditorium. One. Those that remained first applauded when he ended, and then almost in real unity, jumped to their feet, applauding in a standing ovation. They were not just applauding for Royce. They were applauding the search for truth. There was history made in the clarity of this moment. If Alex was still in the room, I doubt he was feigning elation as he did on the stage when Royce accepted the endorsement in 2024. Go look at the thumbnail It's a classic. I remember seeing Alex that day cheering behind my right shoulder, and I marveled at his commitment to being the best politician he could be. In other words, a liar. We left the CD1 convention at the same time. That would be me, Alex, and Royce. And for the second time of late, we did not exchange any words. And why would he? I'm calling him out because he's not a straight player. He's a politician. And that's not what we need. We don't need politicians. That list, I probably can't find it quickly. But I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to let you know how horribly screwed we the people are when Sullivan, McConnell, Cassidy, Collins, Hyde Smith, Tillis, Mullen, Graham, Rounds, Capito, Murkowski, Boozman, Crapo, Young, Grassley, Moran, Wicker, Fisher, Ricketts, Kramer, Hovind, Langford, Scott, Thune, and Barrasso voted to continue the USAID funding all around the world for every crazy-ass thing that the left can come up with. They voted to continue it. Who are those people? And they're only there because we, the people, are not involved in our parties. And I'm inviting you Friday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, on X and X Space with Dan Schultz. Go to @DanSchultz2, the number 2. We're having a meeting every week to encourage and to share with people how to get involved in the party. And let me give you a summary. Just show up. They need people. Don't tell them what you believe. It's none of their business. All you have to say is, I'm a Republican and I want to elect Republicans. Don't conflict with anybody. Don't make my mistake. Don't let them ID you as an American citizen searching for the truth and seeking peace and prosperity. Let them believe whatever they want to think about you. And then when it comes time to vote, just raise your hand. That's it. You don't have to be friends with anybody. You don't have to tell anybody what you think. You don't have to fight these people. Leave that for people like me, the icebreakers. You follow in behind and let's get these people out of government. I want to win. You want to win. We have to win. We'll move forward together, uniting behind a renewed definition of America that was called once before and now is called again Republican. So this was a very historical moment. I'm going to go with Royce, and I'm going to do this again and again. This is not about winning. It's not about losing. It's about encouraging each and every citizen to get involved in politics and to search for the truth. The narrative of the post-World War II Democrat liberal order is in tatters. People are resonating with the mission of saving the republic. That's why I've been doing these podcasts. And you know, there are people here in Minnesota that hate me because I really believe in the idea of republicanism. I don't know what they believe in. Maybe there's part of Republican, part Democrat. I don't know what's in their schizophrenic minds. I'm not here to work out their salvation. I'm here to work out my own. And I will assure you that if you join this great movement with all of its flaws and shortcomings, and there are tremendous flaws and shortcomings. Think of my new ex-friend, Buck, who's calling them out left and right, and he's good at it. There's flaws and shortcomings of epic proportions. Everything can be improved when we, the people, get off the couch and get in the game. These folks that are in there controlling the apparatus of every state, they don't support President Trump. They don't support the idea of withdrawing out of Europe. They don't support the idea of tariffs, of reshoring, onshoring good American manufacturing for jobs for the people. They want the people dependent. They do. They do because their actions tell me that they do. Here in Minnesota, we have politicians now for the first time proposing legislation to minimize waste and fraud and abuse. Where were we the last 10 years? We don't need legislation to call out fraud. We just need honesty. If you're elected in Minnesota, you could research it yourself. You know where the money is going. You don't need legislation. You have a staff. Call it out. I was watching a thing, and I'll probably play it on Thursday. Lutheran Services, Lutherans, the Yante culture. Lutheran Services has been called out by a valiant Minnesota Republican legislator from the Buffalo area. I'm going to play her clip on Thursday. And she's saying, my God, these people are making more money than the governor. The leader of this organization's making 400 G's a year. For what, a nonprofit? If you're involved in a nonprofit, why are you making 400 grand a year? Is anybody in this audience making 400 grand a year? Any of us. But if we're leading Lutheran Services, which is there to serve the people, who's really getting served? And there's a bunch of executives now I'm stepping on some toes, aren't I? I'm not anti-Lutheran. I'm not anti-Catholic. I'm not anti-Jewish. I'm anti-fraud, waste, and corruption and abuse. And look at how long this has been going on. Go back and watch that clip from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. There's nothing new about this. Right after that movie was made, 88 million people died in 6 years. It kind of cooled everybody out for 40 or 50 years. There was a presumed authenticity to our people because the best of us had fought to preserve the republic. It just petered out over time. The thin veneer of our exceptionalism has been torn away by $37 trillion of national debt. This open border, which let these paramilitary organizations into our country in an endless war to defend what? The post-World War II Democrat liberal order. Not to defend this republic, but to defend some idea of globalism, which has failed. So for those of you who believe in it, please do not take me as an attack upon you, but as a search for truth with you. Because let me say again, I voted for George H.W. Bush. I voted just like you for George W. Bush. I didn't understand it had nothing to do with Democrats and Republicans. I believed in that same scam as many of our citizens continue to believe to this day. It's who wants the nation called the Republic of the United States of America, and who is voting for global government, global economy, and global currency. It's just that simple. Do we want to have a nation, or do we want to have a global government? That's what we're dealing with. And President Trump is wrecking the process that was intended to lead to global government. That's what he's doing. You don't understand it. If it doesn't make sense, let me summarize it for you one more time. He's wrecking the process that was going to lead to global government. Now, I don't know where we're headed, and I could make some very negative comments, but who am I to tell the future? Because we, the people, might get involved. And if we, the people, get involved, it'll be our will that gets done. It'll be the will of the people. On that note, thanks for joining. I wish you well. I hope you go to tireget.com if you need tires. It's springtime. I do such a good job of plugging for the advertising that we needed to keep this thing rocking. Please buy your tires from TireGet. If you like the content, call in. I'll help you myself. Love to meet you. Put your comments in the comments. The live chat's critical. Repost the links. There's lots of shorts. Follow us on Getter, on X. Let's get organized. We've got some time. Let's get it done. Thanks very much. We'll see you Thursday, God willing.
Have a good night, everybody.